I am Ezra Deanna, and this is day 6, the final day of the 4th week of Daily Dose of Torah. Once again, we're going through the laws of Tzedakah. Being that we have only one video left and lots of material still to cover, and of course everybody is welcome to go read any laws of Tzedakah in Hebrew or English that is accessible on the internet or otherwise. Again, I've been using the Hebrew version of Rabbi Melamed's Penine Halacha, but really people should be able to as well ask their local authorities any particular questions that pertain to their circumstances. One last section that I thought I would do are assorted questions about what one may use their maaser money towards. Not again how to calculate it, that unfortunately is not going to make it into the videos, but what can be used. So one question he says, may one give their maaser money, which as we mentioned is a way of giving tzedakah. It's not a separate notion from tzedakah. There is a mitzvah of tzedakah, and the way that one should ideally be fulfilling that is by giving 1/5 of their money, or if they're unable to do that, by 1/10 of their money, or if they're unable to do that, even less. So what may one give their tzedakah money towards, or specifically their maaser money? So one question that he has here is, may one give it towards building a shul? So he says there's one opinion that says absolutely not. No, you need to give money that's for tzedakah to those who are struggling financially, to people who need it. It's not for building shuls. On the other hand, there are other opinions that are brought in Shulchan Aruch, Ramah, and the commentaries there that say absolutely it is okay to use maaser money for all other mitzvah needs, including building a shul or purchasing, sparim for that shul. And therefore, he says, at the end of the day, the custom is that we do consider this something which is appropriate to give maaser money towards any sort of mitzvah that you're fulfilling for others. However, he says it's much better to ideally give it to those who are poor or those who are studying Torah. Elsewhere, he has a discussion of the status of those who are studying Torah, if they're poor, if they're not poor, etc., etc. Another question that comes up because of its place in the halacha here is whether or not someone may purchase svarim for themselves and write that anybody may use them. May someone purchase Torah books, Hebrew, English, any language, and just write in the books that anybody is welcome to use these and use their maaser money on that. So he says even though there are those who make mention of this, that it is technically okay, he says this is not so pertinent to a modern day reality. When Sfarim were something that people could barely get their hands on, and they needed to work for months and months just to be able to save up to buy one sefer, he says that may have been different, and they were able to lend them out to others. But now, where Sfarim are so accessible, he says it's quite hard to assume that someone is going to purchase a sefer and leave it in their living room for their own use, and to just write in it that someone else may use it. He says it's hard to assume that counts as something that's an appropriate use of maaser money. He does note, by the way, that based on his approach to what makes someone needy enough to fulfill, to not have to fulfill the maaser requirement, he says if someone wants to learn a particular sefer, let's say I have a sefer that I really, really want for my own personal Talmud Torah, for my own personal Torah learning, he says, and if I would be in the financial situation in which if I buy this sefer, I will not be able to fulfill my maaser obligations, he says that would actually categorize me as someone who doesn't have to give the full 10%. And that, in fact, in that case, it's such a basic need for me to buy that particular sefer, I should just go ahead and buy it, and I actually don't have to fulfill the maaser requirement of giving a full 10%, again, whatever I would be able to do in that case, it may be 9.5%, but he says that's a very interesting way to look at it. He does note, for example, that it is prohibited for a person to buy personal pairs of tefillin, mezuzot, or other things, even though we view them as holy objects. That's not what maaser should be used for. If, however, one was, of course, buying them for someone who couldn't otherwise afford them, that certainly is a wonderful use of money, of maaser money. He also notes a common question, which is come Purim time. May someone use their maaser money towards the mitzvah of matanot la'avyonim, giving gifts to the poor on Purim? He says technically not, because it's otherwise required. It's a halachic requirement to give matanot la'avyonim. He says, however, the minimum requirement for giving matanot la'avyonim is a smaller amount. Again, in the sources that he brings here, he says, some people say it's 1 pruta, which, as we said, is a few cents. Others say that it's the amount that one would need to buy some bread to eat. He says, but either which way, if someone's giving, $50 or $100 to people to different people, to different poor people on Purim, certainly one would be able to do the remainder above that very basic level of Matanot Levyonim from their Ma'aser money. Thank you very much for learning with us this week, and hopefully we will see you next week for the Daily Dose of Torah, week number 5, as we finish our summer program.